A very good afternoon to everybody. Thank you so very much for joining us in this postgraduate seminar, research seminar series. Today is our very last day, and it has been quite an interesting journey, navigating aspects of postgraduate research. My name is Dr. Molale. I am accompanied by Dr. Mmutle, and the idea behind this postgraduate seminar series is to share experiences around the different aspects of postgraduate research you are going through as students. You are going through the different phases in your postgraduate work, and we thought that we should take this journey, go with you in this journey, so that you maybe may have some advice that you can pick from us, questions that you may have for us, and in the process we learn, together. We are in the School of Communication Studies, and we intend to be regularly having these sessions with you as and when the time allows. Now, allow me to give over to Dr. Mmutle to say his few words as we start the session, and then I will go to the first presenter. Dr. Mmutle, over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Molale, and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mmutle, as indicated by Dr. Molale. It's a pleasure for us to be hosting this final postgraduate seminar series. We started on the 24th of May, if any of you could remember, with the presentation by then from Mr. Neo Mufukeng and Miss Sizile Makola, and today it's our final lap of the presentations. We have so far successfully hosted all the sessions, and I'm quite happy and sad at the same time that this is the final session today, although, as Dr. Molale indicated, that we would be arranging for other sessions as per or rather when a need arose, so that we are able therefore to share as many experiences as possible with our postgraduate cohort, so that they too can benefit from these processes. We have our presenters to thank, so that we next time we are able therefore to also deliver another package of our seminar series. These presenters, without them, would not necessarily have our presentations. So all the best to them. And most importantly, we thank them for sharing their insights. And today we are welcoming Dr. Thulani Shabangu and Dr. Martin Chansa as our presenters, and these two will be closing the session, or rather the seminar series itself. And for that, you are welcome, colleagues, and most importantly, we hope therefore to enjoy your session and participate as and when you request questions from the floor. We would be able to facilitate that, and most importantly, therefore, we wish you all of the best as well. Thank you, Dr. Molale.
Thank you, Dr. Mmutle. Dear students, we've been recording these sessions live on YouTube, so we have links that you can go if maybe today you are attending and you haven't been attending other sessions. You are more than welcome to just follow the links that we are going to be providing with you, starting with the present link that is in the chat as we speak. So I will ask Dr. Mmutle to just go into our YouTube channel and then retrieve those links and then post for us here in this chat. But we will also send some recordings and links via email and the presentations from our panel of colleagues. Without any waste of time, allow me to introduce to you Dr. Thulani Shabangu. He is a postdoctoral fellow at Northwest University in the entity called Indigenous Language Media in Africa. And he holds a PhD in journalism from Stellenbosch University in South Africa. And his research interests are in democracy and development communication in Africa, the management and political economy of African media, digital journalism practice, alternative media, radical democratic theories, critical discourse analysis, and ethnographies of media production and consumption. In the past 15 years, he has worked for various non-governmental organizations in Zimbabwe in development communications and program monitoring and evaluation. He has worked with rural communities in different communication for development projects using innovative tools such as participatory video, photo, voice, and MP3 podcasting. He has also conducted fieldwork in various media organizations in South Africa and Zimbabwe, researching on the adoption of digital journalism practices in newsrooms. He has also taught media communication related courses at different universities in Zimbabwe. However, since 2017, he has served as a regular article reviewer for Communicare, Journal of African Media Studies, African Journalism Studies Journal, and he has published journal articles on the practice of development journalism, the political economy of the media, newsroom innovation, and the adoption of digital journalism practices. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Dr. Thulani Chabangu. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Molale, for that introduction. It sounds too much for me. Well, but anyway, that's me. Thank you, colleagues, for the opportunity to share my experiences on how to conduct fieldwork. I don't know if am I supposed to share from my end or you're going to share for me?
You can share from your end. We've given you the ability.
Oh. Okay. Yeah, let me try to share from my end then. Is there anything coming up there?
Yes.
Ah, good. Yes, my presentation today is going to be very short, but it's a practical guide on how to conduct fieldwork. In the past 10, 15 years, I've been doing a lot of fieldwork in communities and in newsrooms around Zimbabwe and South Africa. So my presentation basically draws from my practical experiences, and it's more like personal to me what I've seen during a fieldwork. Although it's an academic presentation, but basically it draws more from my experiences. So in that picture that you see out there, it's me doing fieldwork somewhere in Zimbabwe. I was working with the rural community there on a water project. So I was trying to understand the barriers towards the barriers towards clean water access in that community. You can see that there is a logo there for a water pump, and that community there was in the process of building a dam. But initially I went there as a field worker or as an ethnographer, just to try and understand the barriers towards clean water access and clean water and access to clean water and sanitation. So maybe I'll just go straight into my presentation. Are you hearing me, ladies and gentlemen? Are we together?
Loud and clear, loud and clear, sir.
Loud and clear. Okay, so my presentation is about fieldwork or ethnography. You realize that fieldwork is sometimes referred to as ethnography, or sometimes referred to as the qualitative method. So there is some semantic fuzziness between the terms fieldwork and ethnography. Various scholars would use the same term to define, to mean the same thing. This is because ethnography involves fieldwork. So ethnography is a qualitative research method whose origins is in anthropology, but it is now widely used in various disciplines such as media studies, medicine, development studies, education, etc. So it entails studying people within their own cultural environment or work environment through intensive fieldwork and emphasizing the frames of reference and understandings of the world of the participants themselves. So you would use ethnography or fieldwork to investigate a community or an organization. let's be clear on that one, that you use fieldwork to investigate a community or an organization, and you want to emphasize the perspectives of the participants. So it is not you who's framing up everything, but you are trying to understand the world from the point of view of the participants. So fieldwork is a central part of ethnography, which usually involves direct and sustained contact with the people in their day-to-day lives over a prolonged period of time in order to document and interpret their distinctive way of life and the beliefs and the values that are integral to it. Fieldwork is used to study lived cultures and everyday experiences in communities, companies, organizations, institutions, emphasizing the perspectives of the participants. So you can use fieldwork or ethnography to go and study a community in Mafikeng or in Eastern Cape, Mtata, or in KwaZulu-Natal, or anywhere. You can use fieldwork to go and study an organization, be it a university, be it a media house. But the key point to note is that we want to emphasize the perspectives of the participants. So when you go to, for example, SABC, and you are carrying out fieldwork at SABC, you must emphasize the perspectives of the SABC employees, not your own perspectives. Of course, you are going to bring in your theoretical background and understanding, but the most important thing is that you are emphasizing the perspectives of the participants. So if you go to a community like here in Mafikeng and you want to study the community and understand something about them, you must emphasize their own perspectives. Maybe let's going forward. So I just took maybe some few examples of fieldwork. So you can use fieldwork to conduct a study aimed at understanding the lived cultures of a particular community, such as the Batswana people of Northwest Province. For those of you who don't know me, I'm actually new in Northwest Province. I've stayed in Cape Town. But then if I want to understand in detail the cultures of the Batswana people in Northwest, I must go out and carry out fieldwork and emphasize the perspectives of the Batswana people. I must immerse myself into the daily lives and cultures of the Batswana people in Northwest so that I can understand their cultures and their everyday life experiences. So such a study that may focus on any aspect of the life of the Batswana people. For example, if I want to understand something about their food, their language, their media, their culture, their indigenous knowledge systems, their farming practices, their marriage practices, I must go and immerse myself in their daily settings. So already right now, I'm carrying out a research on indigenous language media here in Northwest Mafikeng. I want to understand what media do Batswana people use to communicate issues around COVID-19. So I'm using fieldwork as an approach. So I go there out every day to try and understand how people in Padima village, how people in Mmutle village, how people in Montua village use indigenous language media to communicate or to receive information about COVID-19. So this is an example of how I use fieldwork to understand a particular aspect of a culture of the Batswana people, which is about media culture. Similarly, I can use fieldwork to investigate certain things in companies, organizations, institutions. You know, for example, I can go to SABC to investigate how journalists use digital technologies in news production processes. I can go to ESCOM, for example, to try and understand certain aspects about their work. You know, the most important thing in doing all this is that I'm putting the participants at the fore, and I'm putting their perspectives, their point of view at the fore. Are you following me, ladies and gentlemen? We need to understand that we foreground the views and the perspectives of the participants. So in ethnography or in doing fieldwork, there are two things that usually come out, what we call the insider and the outsider myths. Maybe before you go into detail about the insider and the outsider myths, let's assume our research goal is to understand the challenges of online learning in previously disadvantaged universities in South Africa during the COVID-19 pandemic. So who is the best person to carry out this research in order to produce a fully detailed report on the challenges of online learning in South African universities? Is it an insider who is a lecturer at University of Venda, who is a lecturer at University of Zululand, or a lecturer at Northwest University, or it is an outsider, someone who comes out who flies in from America and carries out that research? So there is an insider or an outsider. So you want to carry out your research, we always have these sort of challenges or these myths that are there. So the insider myths, the outsider myths believe that only outsiders can carry out valid research on a given group because they have the emotional distance and are objective. So we believe that if you want to understand the challenges of online learning in South Africa, we must fly in a professor from outside because he's objective. He's got the emotional distance. We don't want an insider to carry out a research on online challenges of education in South Africa. In contrast, the insider myths believe that it is insiders who understand the situation better. So they can understand better the challenges of online learning in South Africa. So only an insider can produce a valid research report about the online challenges of learning in South Africa. I mean, I'm referring to the example that I gave above. So this is a challenge now when we are carrying out field work. Which is better? Which perspective do you adopt? Do you go there as an insider or as an outsider? And again, we always question who is the best person to carry out research about a particular group or a particular community in Africa. So this brings us to debate as to whether fly-in professors or Westerners who come as outsiders can research on African cultures or issues and contribute to contemporary scholarship on issues about Africa. Now, if I tell you one of the most rated professors about Zimbabwean history or about African history is a Canadian professor. The guy comes from Canada, but is the most rated professor that speaks about African history and Zimbabwean history. I'm sure there are many examples of how outsiders speak more about our own conditions as outsiders because it is believed they are objective. So this is a question also that sparks issues around decolonizing knowledge and research in Africa. But maybe I'll leave that for another day. But my point was to say when we're doing fieldwork, we're always faced with that challenge of saying who is best placed to carry out the research? Is it the outsider or the insider? And when you go out to carry out fieldwork, what road should you take? Do you take yourself as an outsider or as an insider? And what are the advantages of that? So this is perhaps something to ponder on when you approach fieldwork. Then I'll try to move on to the practical steps on how to carry fieldwork. So for me, the most important step number one, when you want to carry out fieldwork, when you want to go and research something about a particular community or about a company, you want to go to EXCOM, to the SABC, you need to, first of all, obtain ethical clearance through your university. This is a formal process that authorizes you to go out and carry research so that your research is above board. So ethical clearance involves a check on the research design to ensure that it is sound and that the data collection tools do not harm the participants. So the overriding ethical consideration is do no harm. Your research must not harm the communities or the participants that are going to be involved in your research. So it must include your informed consent form, and it is required that you guarantee confidentiality to the participants and include steps on data storage and management. And then the research participants must participate in your research on the basis of comprehensive information and accurate information about the research. and they should feel free to withdraw at any time. So maybe the key takeaway around the issues of ethical clearance is that you are not supposed to do harm, and the ethical clearance processes differ from one university to another. Where I did my PhD, we used to call it the desk process. Here they call it the Basarek. Yet not this, they call it the Basarek process. But the idea around ethical clearance is that you don't do harm. You know, some people can be very creative and mischievous at the same time. A person may go around injecting people certain things as part of a research, and at the end of the day, you know, you are creating more harm than good. So it is very important that you obtain ethical clearance for your field work, and that there's a guarantee that you're not going to do any harm. And then the second process, when you've obtained your ethical clearance from the university, be it UNISA or UJ, you need to establish field contacts and obtain access. So field work entails negotiating to obtain access to communities or to community members or to organizations and their staff members. So without access, fieldwork is a non-starter. You know, remember, you want to go to an organization or to a community to interview people to observe their everyday practices. But if they don't allow you access to their systems or to their cultures, then it is a non-starter. So it is therefore important to start early to establish contact and negotiate for access to the organization or to the community. So you may try to establish contact through phone calls, through email, or even physical travel. You might want to go and knock at someone's office and say, listen, I'm looking for access. I want to investigate this. You might need to go and knock at SABC offices, at Mafeking municipality offices, and say, I want to have access to your employees. I want to interview them on ABCD, or I want to observe them ABCD doing this and that. So normally I would advise people to avoid using emails. You know, emails are a very modern way of communicating, but sometimes they don't work. People don't respond to emails. I've realized that people have got a very low response rate to emails. And so you rather call or travel physically to someone, and avoid emailing emails that have got an info that do not address a specific person, because these ones, you know, are not normally responded to. Like, for example, info@myvillage.com. No one will respond to that email. But if you write an email directly to me or to someone, then I'll be able to respond. So as part of establishing contacts, you must write a formal letter requesting access to an organization or to a community, and explaining why the study is important and how, if they are going to benefit at all. So in the same letter, you also explain the ethical clearance processes, the informed consent forms, and that the study will not do any harm to the participants. So when you've done that, you must always make sure that you obtain a written formal letter granting you permission to conduct the research in that organization or community. Then the third step is sometimes it is difficult to obtain access or to make the relevant contacts. So what I recommend as a strategy is to use referrals or the friend of a friend approach. So you want to have access to ESCOM or to any other organization, but you don't know who to approach. So I always encourage postgraduate students to always talk about your study with your friends, your family, as they may come in handy in helping you with the necessary contacts on who to call, or even who to assist you with accommodation during your fieldwork. So a practical way to gain access to closed institutions or communities is to use the friend of a friend approach, and relying on contacts such as friends, families, and past researchers who have done fieldwork in that area. So a friend of approach, for example, is, you know, you want to rely on a high school friend of yours who now works as a cleaner at ESCOM or at BP Garage or at SABC. Don't undermine that person because he's a cleaner there or he's a pump attendant there. He's a high school friend. Approach him, tell him about your research, he may refer you to the senior management, or I don't know. Talk to your friend. Your friend may know another friend of his who may refer you to someone who will help you to obtain access to an organization or a community. So this is basically the friend of a friend approach. I'm sure some of you have encountered a situation whereby someone comes to you and say that I've been referred to by my friend's friend, something of that nature, which you may not, immediately comprehend. Someone comes to your office and says, "No, Dr. Chabang, I've been asked to come and talk to you." By who? Then they say, my friend's friend referred me to you. This is how you make the necessary contacts and how you sometimes obtain access to closed institutions or closed communities using a friend of a friend approach. Then when you have been granted access to a community or an organization, one of the challenges that you encounter is dealing with gatekeepers and institutional bottlenecks. So gatekeepers, these are the people who normally say yes or no to your research. The person that normally when you are researching in an organization, for example, I was doing my research in a newsroom, they would normally assign you to someone who will be, your gatekeeper, who will be guiding you through the processes on a daily basis to say, Tulani, your research is on this area, and this is the person that will be interviewing or observing. It basically facilitates your stay within the organization. But sometimes these gatekeepers can be difficult to deal with. They might deny you access to the organization because they are concerned about the amount of time that you are going to spend doing your research. This is a common thing. People have no time to be interviewed. I personally don't want to be interviewed, but I like interviewing people. But this is one challenge that you will encounter. People don't have time to be interviewed. And also gatekeepers are also always afraid about the picture that you're going to paint about the organization. So they say, we allow you to come here at SABC. What are you going to write about SABC? Or what are you going to write about our newspaper when you eventually go back? Are you going to write that we're a bad organization or what? So they're always worried about this. And as a result, they may attempt to block certain lines of inquiry, or they might want to control you. And sometimes they might also shepherd you towards a different line of research altogether. They say, no, don't focus on this. Focus on another aspect of your research. And sometimes gatekeepers are learned people. There are people who have been to school, so sometimes they'll criticize you. They'll basically pour water into your research project. They'll say your theory is weak, your methodology is weak, and they'll basically try to undermine your research because they themselves have been in a similar position, or they've been into university and they know the whole process of research. So you mustn't be weak in that area when a researcher throws water into your research project. So as a rule, stay focused, inform the gatekeepers of your research topic and its aim and its methods, and avoid placing yourself in a weak position, which could mean accepting conditions imposed by gatekeepers. Someone saying, no, focus on this, because what you are trying to investigate might paint a bad picture of us. So rather focus on this. So don't put yourself in that weak position. Try to remain resolute with your research. Explain to the gatekeepers why your research is important and why you want to maintain it that way. But then I would want to issue a caveat. Field workers are always open to new lines of inquiry, always open to new lines of research. But I'm saying don't be twisted by your gatekeepers because they want you to research on a certain line because they know or it brings certain advantage. Because they know it works for them at the end of the day. So remain resolute. Don't be in a weak position. Sorry. My next slide. And then when you are already in an organization, what is expected of you is to define your role relationships. You have done everything, you have obtained access, and you are now inside the organization or inside the community. You need to know your role and relationships with regards to your research participants. So there are two views about that. There is the critic and the expert approach. So it depends on which one you want to adopt. You can either adopt the expert or the critic approach. So the critic approach suggests that the social researcher is a person who's extremely well informed as to the problems and their solutions. He's an expert, he knows everything. So when you go into an organization, people see you as an expert. They think you know everything, you are well informed about the problems that may be encountering as a community or an organization, and you are there to bring solutions. And then so that is the expert approach. Then the critic approach suggests that the social researcher is there to evaluate an organization and may, at the end of the day, suggest things that may lead to improved efficiency or betterment of the living conditions of a community. So when you go there, you must be very worried about these two approaches. Whether you're going there as an expert, people will see you as someone who knows everything, someone who's knowledgeable, or they see you as someone who's there to criticize and then offer, solutions that may improve an organization's performance. According to my experience, both the critic and the expert approaches are problematic, and they can be worsened by participants who may be difficult to deal with or have a negative attitude towards your research. So my preferred approach is to go there as a villager or as a novice, as someone who doesn't know anything. I don't go there as a critic or as an expert. I go there as someone who's willing to learn and who's a novice. So my preferred approach is always to de-roll and become the villager. I begin to think more like a villager or more like a man in the streets. I begin to, I remove my academic jacket for a while and then, behave like a villager or a man in the street. Because remember, I'm in the organization or in the community to learn. And I'm going to gain more data by interviewing these people, by observing them. So the best thing is to remain humble. You eat what they eat, drink what they drink, learn what they learn and speak their language. This will make you approachable and will position you as a willing learner. It may even open more doors for you when you de-roll, when you bring yourself down. It will make your life easy. So this is just one of these pictures where I was doing some field work and it was on the weekend. I was tired. So I was now enjoying the traditional African brew with these guys, So I was more accessible to them, and it was nice sharing experiences with them. They knew me as a researcher, but then I'd gone into a position where I de-rolled, I removed my academic jackets, my red gown was at home. You can see that I was wearing a short and a cap. I was drinking, Mkombot with them. That's how I approach. So when you're in a relaxed situation like this, you tend to get more data because people are opening up. And then also another thing that you need to do when you're doing field work is called impression management. This basically entails bringing the best out of you and to your advantage. So as a role, you should always be worried about the impression that you're going to create for yourself in the university on the research participants. So you don't want to leave a negative impression about the university at the community that you are dealing with or at the organization that you are conducting your research. So one of the scholars, Van de Balk, says impression management is concerned about how aspects of an individual's identity can be manipulated to facilitate access and good relationships with members of a host community or organization. So this is how you can manipulate your identity to facilitate access and good relationships with members of a host community or organization. Then one of the scholars, Delane, says that field workers are not genderless, ageless, classless, or restless observation machines. And she observes that gender, age, race, ethnicity may shape relationships with the gatekeepers and the people understand it in important ways. Another scholars, Humphrey and Atkinson, established that male researchers may find it difficult to gain access to settings that are reserved for women, and that belonging to a different ethnic group or national group can have distinct advantages for you. So impression management is about manipulating who you are, manipulating your gender, your age, your race, your ethnicity to bring the best out of the research process. For example, I'll talk about my research, my previous research, where I was doing a study on digital newsmaking practices at the MS group in Zimbabwe. So my gatekeeper, this gatekeeper who was the editor who was the digital news editor, was my junior at university. So this guy, I was referred to him by a friend of a friend, but I couldn't remember him from my university days, but my friend referred me to his friend and to him. So it was a chain. And then this guy, he belonged to a tribal minority like me, and he loved soccer and beer. So, you observe this person and then you begin to manipulate these things to your favor. Okay, so this guy is my junior, means we can talk about our university days together. We belong to a tribal minority, which means we can speak in our own language together. He loves soccer. Well, I don't love soccer, but then it's his weakness. Maybe we can talk about soccer. He loves beer. Well, I don't love beer, but then maybe we have something in common. So I manipulated these things in my favor. So, for example, I was observing how journalists use digital technologies to write news, and the whole newsmaking process and how it was affected by digital technologies. So this gatekeeper was the reference person that if I had any questions, I would go to him. So because he was the digital editor, he was sometimes busy, and sometimes he would say, let's talk later, or would not take my questions. So then I realized that it was easy for me to accompany him to social events even after working hours. So he'd say, after 5 o'clock today, I'm going to watch a game. Man U is playing Liverpool. I don't like football, but I'll just go with him. Then I'll say to him, no, I'm not going to stay long. I'm just going to stay maybe for 20 minutes. And then we'll just have a beer ish, and then I'll then ask him more questions, follow-up questions. No, remember that day, I would then say to him, today I saw this. Can you explain to me in detail how this thing works? You see? So that's how impression management works. It's about manipulating who you are, your Tswana identity, your age. If your gatekeeper is in the same age as you, manipulate that, use it as an entry point to gain a detailed understanding of the organization and to ask follow-up questions if need be during, using your own language or even after hours. Moving on. So fieldwork and ethnography are basically about observation and participation. So the two data collection methods that I used in fieldwork or ethnography are participation and observation. So you go into the field, you participate in the activities of the organization or of the community. You observe and you interview people. So recent thinking around fieldwork is that we must emphasize participation. The field worker must participate in the everyday activities of an organization or a community to familiarize themselves about the community. Participate in the whole process. If it means being hands-on, do it so that you understand it. I'm just trying to think of an example how you can participate. I told you about my recent experience where I was, observing how journalists use digital technologies to gather news. I used to go out with journalists on a mission to look for stories, and I'll participate. I'll assist the journalists to to carry the camera or to photograph using my own phone. So always participate. The most important thing is that you participate and the communities also participate in the activities. So participation is very important because it is part of the decolonial project, which tries to equalize the relationship between the researcher and the researched. I know someone is going to present about decoloniality and the equalization of power relations, but I'm very much touched by this thing because I understand participation and I view participation as a way of as empowering and as a way of equalizing the relationship between the researcher and the researched. So people don't feel belittled by the researcher because the researcher is also taking part in everyday activities of their own mind. So because there is participation between the researcher and the researcher and the researched community, the question is who owns the data at the end of the day? Because these people are participating in the research process. They're giving you their accounts, interview accounts. They're teaching you how to do things. You're observing them doing things. So who owns the data? Because this is a collaborative effort between the researcher and the community. So now people are thinking that no, the community or the community that we're studying becomes a co-author of the research of the research report. So we now use empowering terms. Like we don't call people that we interview during fieldwork study subjects or interviewees or respondents. We call them study participants, which emphasizes their active participation. So I don't want people to say the respondent said or the interviews said or the study subjects said. No, we don't say that. We empower them, we view them as equals, and we call them study participants. Some authors, when writing research reports that use fieldwork, they use the collective we instead of the singular I, even when the document is single authored. So when you eventually write a research article that uses fieldwork as an approach, where you collected data from the field and you interviewed people, you don't use I, you use we. We meaning myself as the principal investigator in the community discovered this. You never discovered anything by yourself, by the way, because you're observing and you're listening to people, doing their own thing. So this is what participation tries to do in fieldwork, trying to foreground the views of the people in the research process, trying to equalize the power relations, and trying to acknowledge them as knowledge creators. Hence, we call them study participants, and we also include them as co-authors in our work. They may not be cited, in the in the author byline, but we call them we because they participated in the research project. Maybe just to try and round up my presentation, one of the key things that we need to observe when carrying out fieldwork is being flexible and being open to new lines of inquiry. Don't be rigid when you're carrying out your fieldwork. Be flexible, be human, be accessible, and try to observe and think around new areas of research. So fieldwork is not structured. It is cyclical in nature. It is continuous. Data collection and analysis and interpretation are all continuous. You cannot say it is fixed because things always change, and the field itself is complex and unpredictable in nature. So I'm doing a research around COVID-19 in Mafeking and how people use indigenous language media to communicate issues around COVID-19. So my approach to this research is that it is open, it is open-ended, it is unstructured. Anything can change because the pandemic itself is continuously changing. So I'm having to redefine my research objectives. I'm having to redefine my methodology every day. This is what fieldwork entails: being flexible and open to new lines of inquiry. Because tomorrow morning we have maybe a new variant of COVID-19, or we have what you call a fourth wave, and things may change. The dynamics of the pandemic may change, and yeah, it requires me to be flexible. Then another thing about fieldwork, we need to move towards digital, virtual or online methods of fieldwork, of doing fieldwork or of doing ethnography. So the key call here has been to say that let's transform traditional methods of research and try to digitalize them. Let's try to try and have a fieldwork in the office instead of me going out to Mafeking or to Rural Mafeking. Why can't I not try and have it in the office? Have it a virtual session or a virtual session of the fieldwork. So there are creative ways of conducting fieldwork interviews using Zoom, WhatsApp, Skype, but then it is always difficult to carry out observation because observation is part of fieldwork. It is very difficult to carry out observation using online methods. But because we are in a pandemic situation, I think it is easy to carry out interviews using fieldwork. The challenge basically with virtual ethnography is how we can observe things in the real world. It remains a challenge, but otherwise it can be done with time. Then maneuvering fieldwork during COVID-19. I don't know about other universities, but here at Northwest University, it is a requirement that you seek permission to travel for fieldwork. You can't just go in and out without seeking official permission to do fieldwork. So the key thing is that you only travel when it's necessary. If possible, try to use online methods or digital methods of collecting data. So the Department of Higher Education and Training, together with the University of South Africa, have set minimum standards of conducting fieldwork during the COVID-19 pandemic. So the requirement is that the field worker must obtain approval from the university. They must receive COVID-19 safety training, and they must continuously plan for risks and take precautionary measures. And number 4, they must have a COVID safety toolkit. So this is very important if you are to do fieldwork. Those 4 steps are very important. Obtain approval, receive COVID-19 training, continuously plan for risks and take precautionary measures. And number 4, have a COVID-19 safety toolkit. So maybe in brief, this is what the COVID-19 safety toolkit has. You should have your mask, a cloth or surgical mask, must have a screen visor, a visor. You must have alcohol-based sanitizers. You must always disinfect your surfaces or chairs during field work. Should have tissues, all those things that you must have as part of your COVID-19 safety toolkit. I know maybe sometimes due to resource constraints, we may not be able to have your mask, your visor, your alcohol-based sanitizers, and you must disinfect your surfaces every 30 minutes or so. Every hour or so. You must have your pagers you must have information about COVID-19 all the time with you when you're going to communities. You must get a box of tissues. It sounds a lot, but then this is the requirement. Maybe just to conclude, and maybe some ethical issues to consider when doing fieldwork. Number 1, always apply the traditional model of ethics based on consent, harm, privacy, and harm. So always maintain confidentiality of your research participants. Avoid unnecessary naming of participants and their circumstances. So you don't want to go to the field and then come back and say, I was in Eastern Cape and I saw Nosi's Dlamini and she's a very poor woman. You don't want to mention that in your in your research report. Do not, the key ethical thing is avoid harm. Then also be wary of going native. Sometimes when you you are doing field work, you develop close relationships with the community or members of, with the participants, such that they disclose certain things to you, and it becomes to break away. We call it becoming native. You are now part of the community, and it becomes difficult for you to distance yourself from the community or the organization. Or you are at the SABC and you are part of the internal politics of the organization. You're now siding with the different, manager or whatever it is. Avoid becoming native. Always distance yourself, and remember, you're a researcher. Don't side with a certain faction within an organization, or don't allow yourself to be involved so much or to develop so much emotional attachment to the community that you are dealing with. And another thing that is a challenge is we sometimes have responsibilities to gatekeepers and sponsors. So when you're doing a research at ESCOM, you promise them that you're going to write a report that will advise them on necessary steps to take. And sometimes that report may not be there at all. So you should be worried about that. Try to avoid making unnecessary promises to gatekeepers and even to sponsors. So when you are funded to do your fieldwork by a certain sponsor, don't promise them anything. Don't say, my fieldwork is going to result in A, B, C, D. It's sometimes difficult to do that. Then another ethical consideration is that I have already talked about is who has got the ownership of the research publication at the end of the day. Whose data is it that you have obtained from fieldwork through a collaborative process of participation and interviewing? Is it your data or it's our data? Then the other thing is that may be an ethical issue to consider is using covert methods to obtain data where there is refusal of access. So for example, you want to carry out your research on a particular community which is closed, or a particular organization which is closed, then you resort to using covert methods of collecting data. I don't know whether it's ethical or not, but it's something to consider at the end of the day. How do I approach the Xhosa people? I want to investigate them about the circumcision schools, the initiation schools, but then they refuse me permission. But I'm dying to find out why people are dying during initiation schools. So what do I do? Do I resort to using covert methods of data collection, where I go there pretending as if I want to be circumcised as well, but I'm knowing that I'm here to collect data? Or where you want to go to ESCOM, or what's the name of the national airline? You want to go there and research why is it performing badly, but then they refuse you access. What do? Use covert methods to obtain data on why the national airline is performing badly. So these are some of the challenges or ethical issues to consider when carrying out fieldwork using covert methods. Is it appropriate to use covert methods? Do I need to always obtain access all the time when doing fieldwork? Or I can use some covert methods. In conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, I want to say that when you're doing fieldwork, let's remember to use our 5 senses that God gave us: the sense of touch, smell, hearing, and sight. Because when you're a field worker or you're an ethnographer, you must touch things, you must smell things, you must taste things, you must hear them, you must see them. And sometimes you must dress like those people. So here is me trying to wear a sort of cap there, trying to pretend to be part of the community that I was researching on. Yeah, that's me trying to de-roll and becoming a villager and touching their food, smelling their food, tasting their food, and above all, listening to their conversations. Otherwise, this is my very brief presentation, ladies and gentlemen. I thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Chabangu. Quite an interesting presentation. I've been fighting the urge to want to raise my hand because there's a number of questions here in the chat. Let's go through it then. Dr. Mmutle is saying, usually researchers conducting ethnographic studies have colorful pictures of their field or area where data was collected. What becomes the value of such pictures in the presentation and reporting of the research findings? Did you get the question, Dr. Chabangu?
Yes, yes.
All right. Do you want to answer it, or should
Maybe
I?
let's take another question.
Another one. Okay. The next one is actually from myself. This question is related towards multiple construction of reality, or the idea of constructionism, or the interpretivist paradigm. You said something about foregrounding the responses of all your respondents. My question then, how does one balance these views from respondents, especially during instances where you find that there are disagreements about the same thing and you're suspecting that someone might be misrepresenting facts, you know? So how do you then balance this out? Because, I mean, you're not supposed to be taking sides, as you just put it for us eloquently. That is the second question. And let me go to the third one. Just by saying that he's following your presentation and he is quite thankful for this, his question centers around the implications of impression management on the research findings. He's asking that, won't the malleable gatekeeper dance according to the tune and not really in the best interest of the valid results? So he's asking, how can then I make sure that I don't manipulate the situation to my advantage in a way that is ruinous to the desired legitimacy of the findings? Did you get that one, everyone? So let's deal with those ones. We'll come to the others.
Anyone wants to come to my rescue? Anyone wants to assist me with the questions? But anyway, yeah, I'll just try to attempt the first question by Dr. Mmutle. What is the value of colorful pictures? Well, I'm not very sure if it is always the case that people obtain colorful pictures of the field. Do you know that ethnography, the early ethnographers were white people, and they were criticized for being racist and for being, you know, having negative attitudes about Africa. Because early ethnography as a method, in fact, developed in Europe, where the Westerners used to go outside their natives, outside Europe, and go and research about communities in Africa, usually in Africa. So when they went back to Europe, they would go and write books about the natives of Africa. And usually they never had colorful pictures of those communities. In fact, they were prejudiced accounts about how Africans were, you know, how primitive we were. So I doubt that ethnographers always have colorful pictures or colorful narratives about the area that they've collected data from. Sometimes you may present negative findings. So it's not always the case. I hope I'm answering you yet. And then the other question about impression management. Can you read the question for me again, Dr. Molale, on impression management?
Okay, he's saying, won't the malleable gatekeeper dance according to the tune and not really in the best interest of valid results? How can one make sure that they don't manipulate the situation to their advantage in a way that is erroneous towards the desired legitimacy of the research findings?
Okay, so another thing that I need to point out that the way how ethnography has been conducted, it is usually the account of the researcher that is published. So when you go out and collect out your data, it is usually the account of the researcher that is written firsthand. And some people doubt it, as, you know, people don't believe so much in ethnography because it tends to foreground the views of the researcher. So it is doubted, the validity and the legitimacy of ethnographic accounts are sometimes doubted, especially people coming from the positivist sciences. who think that things must be measured and things must be verifiable measured using statistical accounts. So that's one weakness about ethnography, because here we're not measuring anything. It is only relying on your memory as the field worker. Remember, the instrument of data collection in field work, I mean, the researcher is at the center of the whole research process, is the integral person. If you're not there, you cannot have field work. That's why the researcher must be at the center of the whole process, and this account at the end of the day is what is taken as the gospel truth, is what counts. So that's one of the disadvantages of qualitative research methods and ethnography as such. It is not always validated. It cannot be duplicated sometimes. You cannot replicate the findings because they're an account of someone. That's the challenge.
Okay.
But always, yeah, but definitely when you're collecting data, you always try to triangulate things. You try to triangulate your findings and avoid one-sided narratives or one-sided accounts of a community or of an organization.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you. So the idea of balancing views, even if you see that someone might be misrepresenting facts and you don't want to sound or come across as if you are siding with a particular respondent, how do you deal with this?
Well, like I said, you always try, but at the end of the day, Dr. Molale, the account of the ethnographer is what is taken as the gospel truth. So that's the limitation. That's the limitation. But as we're doing our field work, let's try to triangulate things through observation, and let's use secondary methods of collecting data. Let us not rely on the observation and the interviews. You can actually rely on secondary data sources to try and triangulate and see other scholars. I mean, if your findings are in line with what other scholars have found. Because your ethnographic account at the end of the day must not be very distant from reality.
Yeah. Let the findings speak for themselves. Let them identify some inconsistency with these views that maybe this participant might be raising. Okay. All right, thank you, Dr. Chabangu. I want to open just 1 minute for maybe one question from the floor. Anybody who may have been left out, is there anyone who wants to ask Dr. Chabangu any question? You can open your mic, just one question. Dr. Chabangu, I really do not see anyone opening their mic to ask anything. I want to thank you so very much for your presentation, quite an eye-opener. You will see that there are some questions that I skipped and inputs that I skipped.
Yeah, there are a lot of questions here. I'm just going through them. I need to take a break and then maybe respond to them at a later point.
Later, it's fine. So you just have some time to go through. Dr. Chabangu, thank you so much. Now we are moving to the second presentation by Dr. Martin Chanza. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to introduce to you Dr. Martin Chanza, who holds a PhD in statistics from Northwest University in our campus. He is a senior lecturer here in the Department of Statistics and Operations Research here in Mahikeng, Northwest University, and he is a chartered statistician, and he specializes in time series analysis, forecasting models, panel data models, and econometric modeling. His research interests include bank credit risk modeling, operational risk banking, bank profitability, business analytics, data mining, machine learning models, and statistical education. He has many years of experience in banking risk management, electricity load forecasting, economic modeling, and statistical modeling. He has worked earlier for NWU, Standard Bank, Barclays Bank South Africa, Espilon Data Mining, and NRWeb. I give to you Dr. Martin Chanza, who's going to be talking to us about quantitative researching, using spreadsheets to record your findings, as well as using SPSS. Dr. Martin Chanza, over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Doctor, for your kind introduction. Can I share the screen?
Thank you, Dr. Molale. While you are setting up Dr. Chansa, from what Dr. Molale has presented to us in terms of your bio, it's quite interesting. And I'm now thinking, because of you also rather have an interest on electricity loading and forecasting. Therefore, one of the questions might be, and as an icebreaker again, perhaps as in when you go through your presentation, you will be able to inform us when should we expect less load shedding going forward, and what informs this load shedding, as in when you begin your presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, I now give you Dr. Martin Chansa. Dr. Chansa, over to you.
Thank you very much, Doctor. And thank you very much for setting the scene for me. Basically, this load shedding is coming as a result of the risks that have been there. You may recall that there have been a lot of risks that have come through in the economy, and therefore it brings itself into a situation where we cannot meet the demand. So issues of supply of coal, issues of demand, there's high demand for electricity, and of course other external issues, issues of corruption, which have led to poor maintenance in the ESCOM department. So with that being said, a lot of quantitative data analysis has been done, which proves to us that these kind of occurrences will be there with us for some time, until I think next year we'll still be sitting with this problem of load shedding. So the forecasting models say that we still in that space for the next year or so. So let's embrace it and see how it goes. Anyway, back to my presentation. I want to give you an overview of quantitative data analysis using SPSS. And this will not actually replace any statistical course that you may have done or you would want to do. This is just an overview that tries to give you a quick rundown on how to use the analysis tool of SPSS. Our outline goes like this. We will give some brief definitions of the quantitative research process, and we also look at the SPSS basics, basic statistical analysis, and then I'll give you an SPSS demonstration. And please feel free to stop me somewhere where you have a question.
Okay.
Yes. Quantitative research has to do with the collection and analyzing of numerical data. It has to do with systematic investigation of phenomena and quantifying research phenomena. So it is an objective kind of a process. This is where we want to use numbers to quantify our research process. Types of quantitative research. We have got three principal types of quantitative research. That is your survey research. This is where we're talking market research type of gathering data, where we send people out, as our previous speaker has said, to go out to the fieldwork to collect market data, and we analyze this data from questionnaires and use this information to come up with decisions that we can make, that we can use in business environments. And then correlational research is where we are looking at the relationship between variables. Are these variables related? Is GDP growth related to unemployment? These are kind of relational situations that we would want to understand. Or would we say COVID-19, is the prevalence of COVID-19 or the cases increasing, is it related to the weather or to the cold temperatures that are happening now? So this would be a correlational kind of research. And then the third one is experimental research. This is where we design an experiment and we want to compare. For an example, you always hear of in the television, you always hear of the comparison of washing powders, Omo and maybe which is the other one? Which is the other washing powder? Are we there?
Yes, we are with you, Dr. Chansa.
Yes, I need one more.
Which
sunlight.
Sunlight, yes, thank you. Yes, we want to know which one is better than the other one. So we conduct an experiment. And then we see, we design an experiment and then we see which one is better than which one. So we come up with some kind of hypothesis, and then we test this hypothesis through given stages of this experiment. And then we come up with statistics that show us that which of these is the best. I would like to take you through this quantitative research process. Remember, when you're starting off your research, the first step is to come up with a topic. What is the research topic? Now, this research topic can be something that you are interested in as a researcher. And it is important for me to emphasize that when you are doing research, you need to research on something that is of interest to you. If you research something that is not of interest to you, that research will never pull through. So it is important to come up with a topic that one is interested in, one likes, and then we carry on to start working with that topic. And then secondly, we come up with the aspect of the methodology. In this case, since we are wearing the quantitative research hat, it means we are going to talk about quantitative kind of research. And in the quantitative kind of research, we start talking about the research design. What research design are we looking at for quantitative research? We will talk about cross-sectional research or longitudinal research. So that would entail our methodology. What is our research design that we are looking at? And thirdly, we would consider methodological construction of the topic. Here, this is where we look at aspects that have to do with the literature review, the research questions, the variables in the study, the formulation of hypotheses, and the operational of variables. What sort of variables are we talking about? If we are talking about intelligence, we are measuring intelligence, how are we going to measure this intelligence? And what scale are we going to use to measure intelligence? So we operationalize these variables. So that step is very important. The literature review will give you a very good idea as to what has been done in this area. And also it may help you to identify the gap of the study, the gaps that you want to work on in the study. So a very good research will be that research that comes up with new knowledge, that research that fills a gap in the literature. And then step number 4, we'll talk about issues of sampling. Sampling from the quantitative perspective, again, here, this is where we talk about random sampling. Sample that is representative of the population, as opposed to qualitative data where we can use a non-probabilistic sampling, because of usually in that space, the samples are very small. So you would use those kind of methods there. And then step number 5, this is where we do data collection, as our previous doctor has just mentioned. This is where we collect data. In the case of quantitative research, our data needs to be structured. So we collect, we design structured questionnaires, we conduct structured interviews. Everything is structured, everything is objective, because here we are looking at the quantitative side of things. And two important terms here, primary and secondary data. What do we mean by these? Primary and secondary data. Are we going to collect data from scratch, or are we going to use existing data from newspapers or from company databases and so forth and so forth? So the data collection step is also very, very important. Step number 6, therefore, is data analysis. That is the subject of our talk today. Data analysis and interpretation. This is where Dr. Martin comes in. Statistical analysis, statistical software, SPSS, SAS, Excel. All these are different types of statistical software. Then we analyze our data using chi-square tests, blah, 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 all these different tests. And then once we have done that, then we do our final step, that is reporting. Where and how will we communicate the findings? If it is a master's or a PhD thesis, then we come up with a document, or we could communicate these results over conferences, or interested parties like government. They would want to understand. For an example, our previous speaker has spoken about the research on COVID. For an example, now he would now communicate these results with interested parties like the government, because they are interested in what's happening in that space. I think I've said a lot. I want to give you an activity, just 2 minutes. Just get a piece of paper there where you are and arrange the following research process concepts in order as discussed earlier. Yes. So what is the first one, the second one, third one, and so forth?
Perhaps let's give them 1 minute.
Yes.
Then thank you, Dr. Chansa. After a minute, can I request that anybody with answers can either raise their hands or indicate as such on the chat so that we afford them the opportunity to speak.
That's right.
Yes, yes.
Or can I share the correct answer and then everybody
Hello.
checks?
My hand is up. Hi. Tembiso here.
Okay.
Yes, Doc.
Tembiso, you can continue.
Sorry about that. I just wanted to get, are we asking in terms of the sequence of how this should be, right? That's what we're talking about.
Yes, the way that the sequence that I gave
okay,
in
I
my
hope
presentation.
Okay,
Yes.
I hope I got it right. So it should be your topic, it should be your methodology, it should be your literature, it should be your data literature, yes, are correct. It should be your data collection, it should be your sampling, it should be your data analysis and reporting.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Yes. Maybe let's compare it with the list here. Do we get it right?
Yes, I did. Thank you. 10 out of 10.
Yes, well done. Let's give you a well done, thank you. Yes. So that is the steps in quantitative research. Yes, now we talk about statistical software for quantitative data analysis. We have been fortunate currently with the new technology that is coming in. We have got two important softwares that are open source that we can use without any license. That is the R package, and also it is part of this other package, the R Studio. So these two software are free. You can just download them and use them, and they are very powerful. They can do anything that you may want as a researcher. So, and then we have got proprietary statistical packages. That is your IBM SPSS, SAS, the statistical analysis software, and the package MATLAB, Stata, Statistica, and then eViews. All these are proprietary statistical packages, which you may also use, but they require a license. However, Northwest University is very rich in terms of software. So for all our students and all our lecturers, SPSS is available and SAS is available. So you don't need to have any problems. And then the R package is also available if anybody needs some kind of learning of R. They may contact myself or any member of our statistics department. And I would like to say as well that we are opening a statistical center here in our faculty, in the Faculty of Economic and Management Science. So all students and staff who would like to consult, they may come to the center, they may be helped. So all that help is there. And all postgraduate students can access all these softwares in the labs. The softwares are there. Now, statistical models for quantitative data analysis, as we said already, that I see your hand, Dr. Molale.
Yes, my hand is up. I was drawing your attention to a question in the chat. Is consultation immediate now? Have you opened doors already for consultation with students and staff?
Thank you for the question. This center is actually—
Dr. Chanza, yes, you may go on.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
That's right. Yes, the center is just started operating beginning of 1st June. However, there's still some logistical things that are needed to be put in place. However, the statistics department members are already consulting on an individual basis if there is any immediate work at the moment. But I'm sure by July, the center should be fine, where everybody can go to the center and get a consultation there. But for now, you can approach any of my colleagues in the department. Anybody can get help. Thank you very much. Any other question?
Any question? I don't see anyone. Are you able to raise your hand, anybody, if you want to ask Dr. Chanza anything? We're talking quantitative data analysis or quantitative research in general. Is there anything you want to ask? Perhaps this is what you are also doing in your study. Anything you're struggling with? Dr. Mmutle is saying this is an excellent initiative, Dr. Chanza, this will be quite helpful. And then Stembiso Sitole, you say your hand is up, you may speak. Yes, Stembiso?
Yes, thanks. Dr. Chanza, I think for me, the part is on data analysis. And I know you and I are having a separate chat later on this. But I mean, how do you analyze that particular data I mean, I know you transcribe it. Is it a matter of trying to make sense out of it, trying to interpret it, or trying to just take me through the you've collected the data? What is it that in particular you're looking for? Are you looking for trying to connect the dots in terms of what the topic is all about, trying to transcribe as it is, interpreting it in your understanding? Yeah, please enlighten me on that.
Thank you for your question. I can say that the data analysis is informed by, first and foremost, by the topic and the objectives. You'll find that from time to time, when you consult with a statistician, they will say to you, can you also send me your research proposal? So what happens there is that the research proposal has a methodology component to it. And in this methodology component, there is where the researcher has written the different methods that they want to use in their analysis. And these methods come from the objectives. In the objectives, for an example, you might find an objective which says that I would like to determine the factors that contribute to turnover at Northwest University, the factors that contribute to turnover at Northwest University. Now, the factors, it means here you are interested in looking at the drivers or those things that really cause people to move away. And when you go into the instrument, the questionnaire, you will find a section which talks about turnover. Maybe you'll find, let's say, 20 or 40 questions which talk about turnover, and maybe they are measured in a scale, in a Likert scale type of questions. So this is where the respondents are answering all these 40 questions about turnover. Now, it means you are going to use an instrument or a technique such as factor analysis that is going to go into that 40 questions and try to group them together to come up with those factors or with those things that may be responsible for people to move away from that employment. So it is really the objectives that drive the analysis. So when I take SPSS and I want to analyze, I'm trying to come up with those things that you are looking for as a researcher from your objectives. And any analysis that I do is related to your study, it's informed by your study. So you'd find that an analysis of student A or researcher A will be different from the analysis of researcher B because of the different objectives in their study. I don't know whether I answer your question.
Yes, you have. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay. In the absence of any questions, then some of the statistical models that we use are these ones here in our picture there. We have got correlational models where we look at the relationship between variables. There we use something very common that we call the Pearson's correlation coefficient. And of course, chi-square tests to test the association between variables. The association between variables is Kaiser-Chiefs winning associated with maybe the weather. You know, when it is cold, then Kaiser-Chiefs tend to win. Something like that, association. And then comparison of means, that is t-tests and ANOVA. These are also very common tests that we use. And then regression analysis. This is where we looking at relationships between variables, and also non-parametric tests. Non-parametric tests, therefore, are some other important tests that we use. These tests do not assume any structure of the variables that we are measuring or of the parameters that we are looking at. They are just robust models that we can use also without assuming any structure in the data we are looking at. Now, once we have collected data, then we can use Microsoft Excel to organize the data. We can use Microsoft Excel to organize the data. Remember, our data might be in text, but for quantitative analysis, it has to be in numerals. So let's say we have collected this data here. The first variable you can see there is the timestamp when the data was collected. And then the second variable is gender with two levels, male and female. And then this variable gender, because it has got male and female, we call it a categorical variable. And then the next variable, age, it gives the ages of these students that I was looking at. The first student is 20 years old, and the next one 19, and so forth. And so many other variables. So this is the data that you have. Now you need to turn this data into numbers. So you may say that, let me call male 1 and female 2. And on the population group, I can say Black African maybe 1 and colored 2, and so forth and so forth. And hours spent also, I can do that. And then once we have named all those levels, then our data will now look like that. We have made it to be quantitative in nature. We've made the data to be quantitative in nature. And then this is the data that we then import in Excel. So we import to SPSS, and then we now start analyzing. So SPSS means the Statistical Package for Social Scientists. This is a very strong software package, very good software package. It can do almost anything that you want to do. So it is actually one of the best software packages. So SPSS will help us to describe our data, to reduce the data into manageable chunks. It will help us to compare information and also help us to predict outcomes. So SPSS is a very good software that we can use. So in the university here, we've got SPSS version 27. And the methods that are there on SPSS, basically you've got your descriptive statistics, where you've got frequencies, cross tabulations, and descriptives. And then you've got the bivariate statistics. You'll also see in my demonstration. And then you also have prediction for numerical outcomes, linear regression, ordinary least squares methods, and also prediction for identifying groups, models such as vector analysis, cluster analysis, and correspondence analysis. So we move forward to look at what descriptive statistics are. Descriptive statistics, these are methods that we use to summarize information. We can summarize information and produce some graphs or tables. So I can say that the takeaway for us today, we can say that descriptive statistics is for summaries or for summarizing, for describing, for organizing. An example, a researcher is investigating the perceptions of technology use in teaching elementary statistics to non-majoring statistics students at NWU. He selects a sample of 54 students. Let's say we would like to describe the sample data that we have collected in terms of age and gender of the respondents. We can use descriptive statistics. So our data that we said we have, the sample data, is imported again to SPSS, and then we can look at the variables, how they look like in SPSS. You've got the name of the variables right at the beginning, this side, and then you have the labels of those variables, gender, and then the values tell you that male is 1 and female is 2. And further on, you find the measurement scale of those variables. So the gender variable, because it is a categorical variable. In statistics, a categorical variable like gender, we say it is a nominal variable. And the variable age, remember it was giving the ages of the students. So that is a continuous variable, and we say that it is a scale variable, or we can quantify it and say it is in the ratio scale or the interval scale. But the premise is that it is a continuous variable. It gives us the actual age of the respondent. And then descriptive statistics, if you go into SPSS, you'll find a rich field of all these statistics that you can do. The descriptive statistics, if you go into analyze and descriptive statistics, you'll find all these frequencies, descriptives, cross tabulations, and so forth and so forth. So SPSS is very rich in descriptive statistics. And then, for an example, to answer our question that we posed, we could run a frequency distribution of the variable gender, and this frequency table will give us the distribution of the gender variable, how many males and how many females, and the percentages, that the distribution of percentages of the two variables. So we always use the valid percentage. And if you look at the valid percentage there, we have almost 44% male and 56% female. The question could be, what is the distribution of non-majoring first-year students according to gender in this study? So this is where you would interpret this result and say that in this study, almost 44% of are male respondents, and 56% are female. So this is how you would go about answering that question. You could also use a pie chart. You could also use a pie chart to convey the same information that we had earlier. And you can also use a bar chart to show the distribution of the population group in that way. And you could give an interpretation of this in your data analysis or in your interpretation. You would write statements to say that in this study, the majority of respondents is Black African students, almost 93% in this study. You could also look at the lower side and say the lower side of this is maybe our Indian and white students. There are very few Indian and white students in Mafeking campus. At the Mafeking campus, almost 2%. They are very very low numbers there. So you can see that your statistics is telling you information that you can now use. Yes, what is the average age of non-majoring first-year students at NWU? Now, here you can see the descriptive statistics. It gives us the minimum, the maximum, and the mean and the standard deviation. The mean is called a measure of central tendency, and the standard deviation falls within the measures of variation. So the average here, the mean, is 19.7, which means approximately or at almost 20 years, the average age of our students, first year students, is about 20 years. So that's how you would answer this one. And then we go to a different set of statistics. The first statistics, the descriptive statistics, were just describing, summarizing the data that we have. But inferential statistics, on the other hand, these are methods that we use to make conclusions. So statistical inference is to make conclusions, drawing conclusions about the population. Inferential statistics makes it possible for researchers to arrive at a conclusion and predict changes that may occur regarding the area of concern. So it looks like inferential statistics have got a forward-looking kind of a phenomena. They sort of want to guide the decision-making process. What conclusions can we make? Common inferential statistics are the t-test, ANOVA, correlation analysis, and regression analysis, and factor analysis. I will quickly explain what t-test is all about. We have got the independent samples t-test, which is used when comparing two groups. For an example, if we have a question which says, do male and female non-majoring first-year students differ in their perceptions to learning elementary statistics through group work? In other words, are there any differences between the views of male students and female students regarding learning of elementary statistics through group work? So if we go into SPSS, we'll find in the analysis tab, we'll find these compare means. And in the compare means, we'll find this independent samples t-test. And if we execute that test, we are going to use the variable QA/Q1, which is our gender variable, and we compare it with the statement which says, I prefer group work in learning elementary statistics. And SPSS is going to give us the test results, which we can interpret and do a write-up in our thesis or report. So we can see there that the sample mean for males is 2.08, and the sample mean for females is 1.87. So it means that these two numbers are nearly not different from each other. 2.08 is and 1.87, approximately 2, both of them. So from this first table, we would say that it looks like there are no differences in the means of these two groups. And then we would now use a formal test down there, which says the independent samples t-test. So we have got the Levin's test for equality of variances, and then we've got the t-test for equality of means. And it also shows us the 95 percent confidence interval. So depending on the assumptions that you make in your study, you may use equal variances assumed, or you may use equal variances not assumed. This is where you are saying that when you look at the sample that we are using, it looks like there is a lot of variability between both males and females. And in some cases, you may find that you are looking at almost equal numbers of males and females, and therefore you may assume that the equal variances assumption is made. So you would select these two groupings, and then you would draw your results according to these selections that you make. So the t-test therefore will tell you if there is any significant differences between your male and female respondents regarding the question that you are asking. So the t-test is used to compare two groups. If you are doing a comparative study, you are looking maybe at rural schools and urban schools. So you could use a t-test to test if there are significant differences between some phenomena in these two situations, rural schools and urban schools. So any two groups that you want to compare would use the t-test. And then you would also test the effect size of those results using these three common tests that we use here: the Cohen's test, the Hedges, and the glass delta test. So these will tell you the effect sizes. If you're saying that there is significant differences between males and females, then these effect sizes will actually tell you by how much is the effect size here. Is it something that we can really consider? Is it significant or not? If you have got more variables, let's say more than 2 variables, instead of using the t-test, you can use ANOVA. ANOVA is used to compare more than 2 groups. So we use the analysis of variance. The next one that we look at is factor analysis. As I said earlier on, it is used to reduce large number of variables into fewer number of factors. So we have 2 types: the explanatory factor analysis and the confirmatory factor analysis. A question that we may ask here is, what are the underlying technological factors in learning elementary statistics by non-measuring students? Again, we are trying to look at these factors that we think could be there. And maybe if you are doing a master's or a PhD, you've come up with a framework. We've come up with a framework that you think these could be the factors that drive this thing. So you want to confirm that these factors are indeed the ones. So you do a confirmatory factor analysis. And where you are not sure what factors could be there, then you would use the exploratory factor analysis. You would explore the data and see what factors come out. So to do that, then you would go to SPSS as well, and you look at the dimension reduction models, and then you select factor, and then it will run your factor analysis. And then you would select all the variables, like I said in the previous statements that I said, that let's say if we have 40 of those questions in the questionnaire, you would select all of them. And then you would select these options here. You would the extraction method, the rotation method, and so forth. And then you would run the factor analysis. And then you would get these results here explaining to you how many factors we have. If you look at this output here, you look at the total variance explained. You see that it says we've got components 1, 2, 3, 4. Components 1, 2, 3, 4 explains the total variation. It is explaining is about 69%. So it means that there is 4 components that are explaining about 69% of the variation in the data. So this would be not so significant result, because we would expect higher cumulative variation of maybe 70 or 80%. But if you've got smaller samples, a number of 69 would also be acceptable. So in this case, you'd say that we've got four of these factors. And of course, you've got these statistics here, the KMO and Bartlett's test that we use to check if the data is factorable. In other words, are we able to use factor analysis for this data? Because some people would say that, no, I want to use factor analysis, but they have not checked if indeed this factor analysis is really usable in this data. So you would use the KMO Bartlett's test, and you'd also check the reliability of your questionnaire using the Cronbach alpha to see if indeed your questionnaire is reliable. Yes, I've been talking too much. I think I should give you an activity. So I would like you to describe, to fill in the spaces there. Go into this website quickly and then fill in the answers you get. I want you to write 2 words. Descriptive statistics is to something, as inferential statistics is to something. Just write those 2 words. Go into this website and then write your answers there. The website is answergarden.ch/1982888.
Well, we are still writing. How about you just drop it in the chat so that we can easily retrieve it from there?
Okay. Okay. Let's see. My presentation is. Let's see. Is it? All right. Let's see.
While you do that, you are helping those who are in the Zoom session, and then after dropping it there, please make it project that screen again for those who are following us on YouTube. Thank
Yes,
you.
I've dropped it there.
All right, then please project the screen for those who are following us on YouTube who may want to do the same.
Okay, can you see my screen?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Yes.
Okay, let's see. Can you see it now?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay.
All right, so those who are in the Zoom and those who are on YouTube, you can just go to that website and just write your answers there. I don't know if has anybody been able to open the website on my end, it's just blank, but don't panic, Martin. Maybe it's taking too long to open.
Yes.
Okay, I'm in, and all right. So Martin, are you able to give hints?
Yes, you just type your two words there.
Okay.
Yes, just type your 2 words there. I'm trying to share that solution, but where's happening? Okay, my presentation is not. I'm trying to get to the sharing part.
I submitted my question, my answers. I'm not sure if has anybody been able to do so. How many are you able to see at the back end if there is only one or there's several answers to your question?
Yes, I'm trying to enlarge.
Okay.
All right, let's see. Okay, can you see my screen there?
Yes.
Okay, did you put your answers there?
Well, I did put my answer. It has already confirmed that my answer is submitted.
Okay.
You should have received it.
Yes. Okay, what is supposed to happen is as you type your answers, they must appear this side, on my side.
Yeah. Again. It's happening. Oh, I can see on my end, people are answering.
Yes, now it's appearing. Can you see it?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, let's get some more answers.
We'll see if people will be giving their answers. So this
would like to give one word for statistics and one word for inferential statistics.
I guess it's just 4 of us, maybe, who are able to access that site.
Okay, yes. All right. So from these answers here, we can see that most of us said descriptive statistics is for describing, and inferential statistics is for concluding. So you can actually use this tool to see if your respondents, if you are presenting, are following. So I'm happy here. I can see that you guys are following. So that is what we are saying. Descriptive statistics is for summarizing or describing, and inferential statistics for making conclusions. That's right. Any questions so far?
Let me ask Dr. Mmutle to just check for us in the chat there, Doc, if there aren't any questions.
Thank you, Dr. Molale. I don't see any question or input from the chat. Perhaps we can ask if there are any questions. Then if there are such, you can simply open up your mic and pose your question to Dr. Chansa. Any questions, comments, compliments are also welcomed. I don't think there are any questions, Dr. Chansa. We may proceed.
Okay, then we can go on to look at an SPSS demonstration. We can look at an SPSS demonstration quickly. Yes, so if we are in SPSS, this is SPSS. The first thing we would do is to import data into SPSS, that data that I've been looking at. We import it into SPSS like that. Can you still see my screen?
No, not yet.
Not yet, okay.
Yes, you can try and share again.
Can we see it?
Now we can see.
Yes. So if you look right at the top there, you've got all these menus here, file, and this is here where you import your data, Excel data, CSV data, and so forth. And also you've got all these tools, the data tool where you can organize your data, you sort variables, transpose, and so forth. And then here on the transform, you can transform the data. For an example, if you want to change from one form to another, or you take logarithms of the data, you transform it here. Or you want to add, let's say, variable number 1, variable number 2, you want to put them together. So you would use the transform tab there. And the analyze tab, this is where you have all these models that you can use for your research reports. So as we said, we spoke about descriptive statistics. So you can see if we go there to descriptive statistics and we say we want frequencies. If I say I want frequencies of all these observations that I have, I can just say, select all these observations that I have, and then I select all of them, and then I move them over to the side, and then I can run the frequencies. I can run the frequencies. We will leave out the age variable because we said this one is a continuous variable. So we'll bring it back this side. And then we can run these frequencies. So if you can also select the statistics that you want to see in those tables. But for now, we'll just leave it and then we run this. So SPSS will give us the frequency tables. You can see the population group. We've got the frequency tables. How many Black Africans? 50. And the valid percentage is 92.6, almost 93%. So SPSS is a beautiful software. It will give you all these frequency tables that you can now look at and start interpreting and commenting. And our gender variable is there, giving us the frequencies, the number of males in the study and number of females, and the valid percentages. It is a beautiful software, I tell you. It is very user-friendly. And then, as if that was not enough, you want to do graphs, you would just come. Yes.
My apologies.
Yes.
I think when you were running the statistical software, SPSS,
Yes.
on our end here, it is not yet running. We still have your older screen, not necessarily, we can't follow the frequency that you are referring to.
Okay, yeah. Okay, let me check again. Okay, can you see the frequency tables?
Yes, now we can see the population group.
That's right, yes. So SPSS will give you all these frequency tables that are easy to interpret, easy to use, of all your questions in your questionnaire. Then you can now decide to interpret these and give meaning to most of these numbers here. So SPSS is a very good tool for our quantitative analysis. And then you can also come up with graphs and tables. For example, if I go to the graphs tab at the top and I do, and can you see my screen there with these graphs here?
Yes, we can see, Doc.
Yes, let's say we want to do a pie chart. Let's say we want to do a pie chart. So we'll drag this and put it there. And then we want to do a pie chart for gender. Then we bring gender into this slice there. And then this side, we want these to be percentages. We want these to be percentages. And then we can say, okay. We can say, okay. Can you see our pie chart there?
Yes, we can see, quite nice, in fact, quite nice.
Oh. Thank you very much, yes. And then you can now add a few things in there on the pie chart. Yes, you can say, I want to see the percentages, show labels. And I want this to be whole numbers. And then I apply. Yeah, so there is our pie chart with distribution of male and females. Then you can reduce the size of this chart. You can change the colors. It's really up to you for the presentation. So you can now take this pie chart and put it in your document and interpret the results. You may also want to do a bar chart. You may also want to do a bar chart. For example, let's do a bar chart for population. So if you want to do a bar chart, then we are going to take the bar chart and put it there. And then we take the population variable, we put it there. And we also want percentages. We also want percentages. And we say, okay, there we go. We have got our bar chart. And then we can add the variables in there. Can add the variables in there. And if we want, we can remove these grid lines. And we can now have our bar chart. And then we can take this and look at it in our document and interpret the results. So it really depends on what we want to do. SPSS is very good and user-friendly. If we want to do our t-test, then we go to compare means. And then our independent samples t-test is there. Independent samples t-test is there. And then we run the analysis. Or if we want to do factor analysis, we will go to our dimension reduction and we look at factor there. And then we are going to take all the variables that we are interested in to do our factor analysis. And then we put them there. And then we select the options that we want, and then we run our analysis. It will give us again this output. In this case, it's showing us a total variation of about 75%, 75% of the data. But it's giving us a lot of components, 9 components. Again, this will show you that it's not a good analysis, because we want the components to not overlap. They should be distinct. So you do some further analysis on this to see what to see if you can get the best solution. And you can now do your reliability testing and your factorability testing and see if the methods that you want to use are the correct ones. So I would like to leave it here and say that SPSS is a rich software that all our researchers can use, and it is easy to navigate to get the results. However, you would need some input from a statistician to actually guide you here and there. But otherwise, it is a very beautiful software. So I think with this, then I think we have covered the gist of all that we wanted to do. And I would like to pause here and say, let's take questions if there are any questions.
Thank you, Dr. Chansa, for this wonderful presentation. I must say, and I've been indicating this as well to Dr. Molale, that having said for your presentation, I now feel the need to go back to the basics and at least attempt to get the foundation of everything you have shared with us today. And it's quite important simply because of you simplify it in a sense that I see where you are going, where you have started, and how to get to the end point. But with me, because of I necessarily do not have that enhanced background of statistics, I feel now the need to say it's time for one to at least begin some form of sessions, particularly consultations or whatever the case might be, so that I can be able, therefore, to at least see this bigger picture, understand, therefore, how to navigate from one end to the other. Because of what is important is that we always attempt to do mixed methods, and without necessarily the appreciation of the quantitative aspect. Now, with your presentation, I've realized today that I need to go back to class. Although I might be more interested in quality, but with your presentation, I feel a sense of going back to class just to at least get a clear understanding on the quantitative aspect, so that it complements now what we normally do in terms of the mixed method approach itself. Colleagues, let me take any questions
Thank you.
that you might be having. I know that we have learned a lot. This was quite interesting and insightful. And I know with us in the humanities, majority of our students are more to qualitative, and I hope therefore they saw the value of this session, and they would be able to, as you correctly said, and you extended the invitation to all of us to say, you have now opened your doors in the faculty for and for people like us, therefore, primarily from the humanities and social sciences, to come and learn from at least qualified statisticians going forward. I think we appreciate your invitation, and we will take you to task on that one. Let me, I see the chat simply compliments Dr. Chansa. Mr. Utusite Maunatlala, thank you very much, Doc. Everything is quite clear. Ngidi as well, thank you very much, Dr. Chansa. Can we have questions as well? Inputs, compliments are also welcome. You can open your mic and say a thing or two. You are allowed.
Thank you very much.
Before we finally wrap up, any questions for Dr. Chansa? Questions? Inputs, Dr. Molale?
There aren't any questions in the chat. Thank you so much, Dr. Chansa. We have indeed learned a lot from you, and also from Dr. Chabangu as well. In the absence of questions, we have now come to the end of our postgraduate seminar series. What a way to put an end to this seminar series. And just allow me to give Dr. Chansa some space for concluding remarks.
Well, I would like to thank you, Dr. Molale and
Yes.
Dr. Mmutle. Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes. I would like to thank you for giving me this opportunity and to share with our colleagues and students. I think working together like this, it is really gonna give us a good way forward with our research. So I really thank you, and I'm very, very happy for the opportunity. And let's do this more often. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Doc. Thank you so very much. I just want to say to everyone else, thank you so much for being a wonderful audience. And this is just to say to all of you that research is a very lonely journey. And at times we need to bounce ideas around, you know, do not close yourself in that corner. If you still need help about anything, especially within our school, we are all here to help you. Munei, I can see you are here. Thank you so much for joining. I'm still waiting for you to talk to me. You know what I'm talking about. Kenny, Njingane, any of you, if you need help, reach out, because you might learn a thing or two, even if we don't have the answers, but at least we can direct you. Because behind me, I have a pool of colleagues who are in a position to assist us. You'd be surprised how this thing came about. I just went to Twitter and I asked people if I were to invite them to my class about research, what would they want to talk about? And this culminated to this postgraduate research seminar series. So just going to Twitter and asking people, they are readily available to assist us. So one may not have the answers for you, but I guarantee to you that we can refer you to the right persons if we are unable to help ourselves. Thank you so much to you, Dr. Mmutle, and a big thank you to the research focus area social transformation, the research director there, Professor Lynette Fori, who has enabled us to host these sessions through the resources that were provided for all of us. I want to thank all the presenters for from day one, the 24th of May, right up until today, availing yourselves. There are those who may who for one reason or another were unable to present in these sessions because they were preoccupied in their own space, but we thank them for having volunteered themselves to say, we will come to share what we know, what we've learned with your students in your class. And let this community of practice continue, and from time to time we'll be checking out with checking up with all of you to see if we may not need to have another session of this nature where we can talk about other aspects of research. We may not be in a position to help you with everything, but the little that we know, the little that we can help you with, we are more than ready to assist you. Dr. Mmutle, do you want to say something in closing?
Thank you, Dr. Molale. From my side, I don't think I have much to say, except the fact that I truly appreciate all the attendees. Their level of contribution from day one has been quite exceptional. And for that, we appreciate the commitment as well from your side to ensure that you come and benefit from these sessions. I also want to humbly appreciate all our presenters from day one, the 24th of May until to date. We truly appreciate it. If it was not for you, these presentations would not necessarily be a success. And as I normally say that it is successful simply because of you guys. And for that, I know some of you had to compromise your time, your energy, and move some of the commitments that were immediate simply because of you wanted to form part of these important sessions. And for that, we truly appreciate all your contributions and efforts, your insight, your experiences, as you have indicated from day one that we do not necessarily possess any form of expertise in these processes. What we simply create, or rather this platform was meant for, was for at least a number of people, particularly our presenters, to reflect on their experiences. And that's what they have done. And for that, we truly appreciate. Most importantly, let me take this opportunity as well to thank you, Dr. Molale, for the sterling job you have done throughout this seminar series and your contribution as well. I know for one that you have this edge of being a student from time to time. And for that, I truly appreciate you and the drive and zeal that you possess in you. And I know for a fact that our postgraduate students across the entire university are in the safe hands with you, and in the driver's seat, people like yourself, Dr. Chansa, Dr. Chabangu, to name a few, are quite exceptional in assisting a number of students going forward. This is what we are made of. This is what we attempt to do as always. And as Dr. Molale correctly says, we are open to everyone. Let it be that where we cannot assist, we would be able, therefore, to direct you to the relevant people such as Dr. Chansa. I know, therefore, they would be willing to assist you and guide you as well into the right path. With those few words, Dr. Molale, I thank you. I thank everybody. And most importantly, I have enjoyed myself throughout this seminar series, and may you all take care and have a lovely evening ahead. Thank you, Dr. Molale.
And that is a wrap. Thank you so much to everybody. May you have a splendid evening. Goodbye. Dr. Chanza, may you please remain.
Bye-bye.
So we can
Bye-bye.
debrief.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everyone else. Thank you.
Bye.
Yeah.